The email came at 4:59 p.m., 1 minute before the office closed. I almost didn't open it. After a long day, I was already packing up, ready to leave, ready to breathe. But something about the timing felt off. Too precise. Too intentional. I clicked it. And, just like that, everything changed. Termination notice. Effective immediately. No warning. No meeting. No explanation that made sense. Just a short paragraph dressed in corporate language, telling me my role was no longer required. My hands froze over the keyboard. This wasn't right. Not after everything I had done. 6 months of overtime. Weekends sacrificed. Deadlines saved when no one else could handle the pressure. And the biggest one. The project. The one I had been building from scratch. The one my boss had personally pushed me to finish ahead of schedule. The one due next week. I stood up slowly, my mind trying to catch up with what just happened. Around me, the office was already emptying out. People leaving. Conversations fading. No one knew yet. Or maybe they did. I walked straight to his office. The door was open. He was still there, sitting behind his desk like nothing had changed. He looked up as I walked in, his expression calm. Too calm. Like this conversation had already been rehearsed in his head. I placed my phone on his desk, the termination email still open. No words at first. Just the truth sitting between us. He didn't look surprised. Didn't apologize. Didn't even pretend. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, folding his hands like this was just another routine discussion. And then he said something that didn't just end my job. It exposed everything. He said the company needed to move in a different direction. But that wasn't the part that hit. The next sentence was, he said the project would still continue. Without me. My chest tightened. Because that project was mine. Built by me. Designed by me. Executed by me. And then it clicked. Slow. Cold. Clear. This wasn't about performance. This wasn't about restructuring. This was about removal. He waited until everything was done. Until the project was complete. Until there was nothing left he needed from me. Then he cut me out. I asked one question. Simple. Direct. What about my final pay? For the first time, his expression shifted slightly. Not guilt. Not concern. Something else. He said it would be processed. Standard timeline. Corporate answer. But his eyes said something different. Something I couldn't ignore. Because in that moment, I realized something deeper than just losing my job. This wasn't finished. Not even close. I walked out of that office with nothing in my hands. No job. No security. No answers. But one thing stayed with me. That look in his eyes. Because it didn't say I was done. It said he thought I was. And that was his first mistake. The office doors closed behind me, but the silence followed. Not the kind that calms you. The kind that presses in. I stood in the parking lot longer than I should have, staring at nothing, replaying every second of that conversation. It didn't feel real yet. Like my mind was still trying to reject it. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from payroll. My final statement. Too fast. Way too fast. I opened it immediately. And that's when the second hit came. Harder than the first. The amount was wrong. Not slightly off. Completely off. Half of what I was owed. No overtime included. No project bonus. Nothing that reflected the months I had just given them. My chest tightened as I scrolled through the breakdown. Line by line, everything that mattered had been removed or adjusted. Clean. Calculated. This wasn't an error. Errors don't look this precise. I turned back toward the building without thinking. The anger wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was focused. The doors were locked now. Lights dimmed. Most of the staff already gone. Except one office. His. Still lit. Of course it was. I went back in through the side entrance, using the last minutes of my access badge before it expired. The hallway felt different now. Quieter. Colder. Like I didn't belong there anymore. But I kept walking. Straight to his door. He didn't look surprised this time either. Almost like he expected me to come back. I placed the payroll statement in front of him. No emotion. No hesitation. Just facts. He glanced at it briefly, then leaned back again, same posture, same control. And then he said something that made everything clear. He said compensation adjustments were part of the termination process. Adjustments. That word stayed in the air like it meant nothing. But it meant everything. Because it confirmed what I already felt. This wasn't just about firing me. This was about taking everything they could on the way out. I asked him directly, "What about the overtime? What about the project bonus?" He didn't answer right away. That was enough. Then he said the project wasn't officially mine. Said it belonged to the company. Said contributions don't equal ownership. That sentence hit different. Because it wasn't just an excuse. It was his justification. He had already decided this. Planned it. Executed it. I looked at him, really looked this time, and saw something I hadn't noticed before. Confidence. Not just in the decision. In the outcome. He believed this was done. That I had no leverage. No proof. No way back. And, maybe in that moment, he was right. Because all I had were my memories. My work. And nothing to show for it. But then something small surfaced in my mind. Something I hadn't thought about until now. A backup. Not on their system. Not on their servers. Something I had created quietly. Out of habit. Out of caution. Out of instinct. My pulse slowed. Because suddenly, this wasn't over. Not even close. I picked up the paper from his desk, turned, and walked out without another word. He didn't stop me. Didn't need to. Because he thought the situation was already in his control. He thought he had taken everything from me. But what he didn't know was that I still had something he couldn't erase. Something he couldn't adjust. And once I used it, this wouldn't be about getting my job back. It would be about making sure he lost far more than I did. I didn't go home right away. Because this wasn't the kind of problem you sleep on. This was the kind you solve before it grows. I sat in my car, engine off, mind moving faster than it had all day. Everything he said, every move he made, it all pointed to one thing. He believed I had nothing. That belief was my advantage. But only if I used it right. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. Not the company one. My personal system. The one I never connected to their network. The one they didn't know existed. My fingers moved quickly, opening a folder buried under layers of unrelated files. Nothing labeled directly. Nothing obvious. Just in case. And there it was. The project. Every version. Every update. Every detail I had built over the past 6 months. Not just the final product. The entire process. Timestamps. Edit histories. Notes. Even voice memos I recorded during late nights when ideas came faster than I could type. Proof. Not just that I worked on it. That I created it. My breathing slowed, not from relief, but from clarity. Because now the situation looked different. This wasn't just about unpaid wages anymore. This was intellectual theft. And that changes everything. But something still didn't sit right. If he was confident enough to fire me like that, to cut my pay like that, then he must have believed I couldn't fight back. Which meant he either didn't know about this backup, or he had something else. I opened the final version of the project and compared it to what was submitted on the company server earlier that week. There were changes. Subtle. Intentional. Not improvements. Adjustments. Sections rewritten. Data slightly altered. Structure modified just enough to create distance. Distance from me. My jaw tightened. Because this wasn't just theft. This was cover-up. He didn't just take my work. He tried to erase my signature from it. But he made one mistake. A small one. The kind most people wouldn't notice. He kept a core element unchanged. A specific framework I designed. A pattern in the logic that was unique. Something I built from scratch. Something that couldn't be replicated without understanding how it was created. And he didn't understand it. Not fully. Which meant when that part was tested, it would show. I leaned back, staring at the screen, letting the realization settle. This wasn't going to be a simple fight. Because if I went at him directly, he would deny everything. Use legal language. Hide behind company policy. And right now, he had the position. The authority. The narrative. I had to change that. I needed leverage. Something bigger than just proof. Something that forced attention. My eyes shifted to another folder, one I hadn't opened in months. Inside it were emails, internal threads, decisions made late at night, conversations he thought were private. I had saved them without thinking much about it at the time. Just habit. Just caution. Now they looked different. Valuable. Dangerous. Because some of those emails didn't just show him taking credit. They showed something else. Something deeper. Something the company itself wouldn't want exposed. My pulse slowed again. Not from fear. From strategy. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me versus him. This was about him versus everything above him. And once that kind of pressure starts building, it doesn't stop easily. I closed the laptop slowly, one thought locking into place. This wasn't going to be quick. This wasn't going to be quiet. And when it was over, he wouldn't just regret firing me. He would regret ever thinking I had nothing. The next morning didn't start with anger. It started with silence. The kind of silence that comes before something calculated. I wasn't rushing back to confront him. I wasn't sending emails or making calls. That would only play into his control. Instead, I opened my laptop again and went deeper into the files I had saved. Because proof alone wasn't enough. I needed impact. I reviewed the email threads carefully this time, not as memories, but as evidence. Patterns began to form. Late-night approvals. Sudden changes. Decisions that didn't match official timelines. Then one thread stood out. Marked urgent. Sent just 3 days before I was fired. It was between my boss and someone higher up. Not just a manager. Executive level. My eyes scanned every line. And then I saw it. The twist. The project wasn't just important. It was critical. A deal was tied to it. A big one. Millions on the line. Deadlines that couldn't be missed. And buried in that thread was something else. A condition. They needed the project delivered clean. No disputes. No ownership complications. My breath slowed. Because suddenly, everything made sense. I wasn't fired because I failed. I was removed because I existed. As long as I was attached to the project, there was a risk. A claim. A complication they didn't want near that deal. So they did the simplest thing. They erased me. My hands tightened around the laptop. This wasn't just my boss anymore. This was bigger. Structured. Approved. But then something even more dangerous surfaced. Another email. Same thread. Later time. My boss had replied. Confident. Said everything was handled. Said there would be no loose ends. Loose ends. That's what I was to them. I leaned back, staring at the screen, letting that settle. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy at a higher level. And then the final twist hit. Hard. The executive responded. Short. Direct. Approved. That one word changed everything. Because it meant my boss didn't act alone. He was backed. Protected. For a second, the situation felt heavier. More dangerous. Because taking on him meant stepping into something much larger than I planned. But then another thought surfaced. Clear. Sharp. If they needed everything clean, then exposure was the last thing they could afford. That was my leverage. Not just against him. Against all of them. I closed the email and opened a new document. Not to write a complaint. Not to send a warning. To prepare something else entirely. Something structured. Precise. A timeline. Every action. Every message. Every decision that led to this moment. Because once everything was connected, it wouldn't look like a personal issue. It would look like a risk. And companies don't ignore risk. They eliminate it. The question was, who would they eliminate? Me? Or him? I stared at the screen, already knowing the answer. Because unlike them, I wasn't the one hiding anything. And once I made this visible, they wouldn't have a choice. Something was about to break. And this time, it wouldn't be me. I didn't send anything that day. Not a complaint. Not a warning. Nothing. Silence was part of the strategy now. Because when people think you're done, they stop watching. I spent the entire day building the timeline. Every email, every edit, every approval layered in order. Clean. Structured. Impossible to dismiss as coincidence. This wasn't emotion anymore. It was evidence. By evening, I had something solid. Not just proof of what he did. Proof of why it was done. But something still felt incomplete. Because exposure only works if it reaches the right place. Sending it to HR would bury it. Sending it to my boss would warn him. Sending it blindly would dilute it. I needed precision. The right eyes. The right pressure point. I went back to the email thread and studied the names again. Not just who sent messages, but who was copied silently. The ones who didn't speak. The ones who observed. One name stood out. Compliance. That changed everything. Because compliance doesn't care about hierarchy. They care about risk. And this situation was full of it. Intellectual theft. Payroll manipulation. Executive-level approval tied to a high-value deal. I didn't need to accuse anyone. I just needed to present the pattern. But before I could move, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then it stopped. A message came through seconds later. Short. Direct. We need to talk. No name. But I already knew who it was. He moved faster than I expected. Which meant one thing. He felt something shifting. I didn't reply. Not yet. Because responding too early would give him control again. And I wasn't stepping back into that position. Another message came. This time more specific. Said there had been a mistake. Said things could be fixed. My eyes narrowed. Because yesterday there was no mistake. Yesterday everything was intentional. Now suddenly, it wasn't. That meant he knew something. Or suspected something. I opened my laptop again, reviewing the timeline one more time. Every detail sharpened. Every connection stronger. There was no gap left. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. A final document attached in the thread. Not part of the main discussion. Hidden in a forwarded chain. I opened it. And everything shifted again. It wasn't about the project. Not directly. It was about the deal. Terms. Conditions. Financial breakdown. But one section stood out. Clear. Unavoidable. Employee liability clause. My breath slowed. Because buried in that clause was something dangerous. Something they didn't expect anyone like me to read. It stated that if any internal misconduct was discovered before final execution, the entire deal could collapse. Collapse. Not delay. Not adjust. End. I leaned back, staring at the screen, letting that settle. Because suddenly, everything changed again. They didn't just need me removed. They needed me silent. And now, I knew exactly why. I picked up my phone, looking at his message again. We need to talk. For the first time since this started. I smiled. Because now the balance had shifted. Completely. He wasn't in control anymore. And whatever happened next wouldn't be on his terms. I didn't respond right away. I let the silence stretch. Every minute I didn't answer, the pressure on his side increased. Because now he didn't know what I had, what I understood, or what I was about to do. Uncertainty is louder than confrontation. Another message came through. More urgent this time. Said we should meet in person. Said things were being misunderstood. Said this could get complicated if handled the wrong way. Complicated. That word told me everything. Because complicated doesn't mean unclear. It means dangerous. I finally replied. Short. Location and time. Nothing else. No emotion. No negotiation. Just control. He agreed instantly. Too quickly. That confirmed it. He wasn't trying to fix a mistake. He was trying to contain damage. I chose a public place. Not his office. Not anywhere private. A quiet cafe with enough people around to keep things visible. If he thought this would be another controlled conversation, he was already wrong. I arrived early, taking a seat where I could see the entrance clearly. Laptop closed in front of me. Phone face down. Everything calm on the surface. But inside, everything was calculated. He walked in 10 minutes later. Different from yesterday. Less confident. More aware. He spotted me immediately and walked over, forcing a composed expression that didn't quite hold. He sat down without waiting. No small talk. No delay. He got straight to it. Said there had been internal confusion. Said payroll could be corrected. Said my termination could be reconsidered. The shift was obvious. Yesterday, I was disposable. Today, I was a problem. I didn't respond immediately. I let him fill the silence. Because people reveal more when they try to control the conversation. He continued, offering adjustments, trying to frame everything as fixable. Like this was still a negotiation. That's when I opened the laptop. Slow. Deliberate. I turned the screen toward him. Not everything. Just enough. The email thread. The clause. The approval. His expression changed instantly. Not dramatically. But enough. His eyes moved faster now, scanning, calculating, trying to understand how much I had. I didn't speak. Didn't explain. Didn't accuse. Because the screen was doing all of that for me. He leaned back slightly, his posture shifting. The control he had yesterday was gone. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he asked one question. How did you get this? I didn't answer. Because that question didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. I closed the laptop slowly. Not to end the conversation. To change it. I told him something simple. This wasn't about my job anymore. His eyes locked onto mine. Because he understood exactly what that meant. I continued. Said this was about the deal. That word hit hard. Because now he knew. I knew everything that mattered. And for the first time since this started, he wasn't trying to control the situation. He was trying to survive it. The power had shifted. Completely. And we both felt it. The air between us changed. Not tense. Controlled. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice like that could shrink the situation. Said we didn't need to escalate this. Said there were ways to handle it quietly. Quietly. That word told me exactly where his fear lived. Not in me. In exposure. I stayed still, letting him talk. Every sentence he added gave me more than any answer could. He mentioned timelines. Deadlines. Pressure from above. He wasn't just worried. He was cornered. Then he said something he probably didn't mean to say. He said the deal was already in its final stage. Final stage meant one thing. There was no room for disruption. I asked a simple question. What happens if it doesn't go through? He didn't answer immediately. That pause said everything. Because he knew exactly what would happen. Loss. Accountability. Blame. And in situations like this, blame doesn't stay at the top. It moves downward. Straight to him. I leaned back slightly, giving him space, but not relief. Said nothing. Just let the weight of that reality sit between us. That's when he shifted completely. The tone changed. The posture changed. The strategy changed. He stopped negotiating. Started offering. Said my position could be reinstated. Said my compensation could be corrected. Said additional bonuses could be arranged. Everything that didn't exist yesterday suddenly did. Because now it wasn't about fairness. It was about damage control. I watched him carefully, noticing something deeper. He wasn't confident anymore. He was reacting. And reactive people make mistakes. I asked another question. Calm. Direct. Why was I removed? This time, he didn't dodge it. Didn't redirect. He said it clearly. Said my involvement created risk. Risk. That word confirmed everything. I wasn't fired because I failed. I was removed because I mattered too much. He continued, trying to justify it. Said it was necessary. Said it wasn't personal. That almost made me laugh. Almost. Because everything about this was personal. I closed the space between us just slightly, not physically, but in focus. Said something simple. This doesn't stay here. His expression tightened. Because now he understood the direction. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was a decision. He asked what I wanted. Finally. The right question. I didn't answer immediately. Because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about my job. It was about balance. I told him this wasn't something he could fix alone. His eyes shifted. Because now he knew exactly where this was going. Higher. And once something reaches that level, it doesn't stay contained. The cafe noise faded around us, but neither of us noticed anymore. Because in that moment, everything had narrowed down to one reality. He had tried to remove me quietly. Now, there was nothing quiet about what came next. He stopped talking. For the first time since he sat down, he had nothing left to add. Because the moment I said this goes higher, the entire situation changed. This was no longer something he could manage with offers or quiet fixes. This was exposure. I picked up my laptop again, but this time I didn't turn it toward him. I kept it facing me, opening a prepared draft. Clean. Structured. Ready. He noticed. His voice dropped further, almost urgent now. Said we could resolve this today. Said involving others would only complicate things for everyone. Everyone. That word didn't land the way he wanted it to. Because everyone didn't include me yesterday. I looked at him, calm, steady, completely certain now. Said something simple. This was never resolved yesterday. He leaned back again, but this time there was no control in it. Just realization. Because he finally understood something he had missed from the beginning. I wasn't asking for anything. I was deciding. I hit send. The email left instantly. No hesitation. No second thoughts. It wasn't sent to him. It wasn't sent to HR. It went directly to compliance. And copied the executive from that thread. Everything attached. Timeline. Emails. Clause. Proof. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing emotional. Just facts. The kind of facts companies can't ignore. He stared at me, the moment landing in real time. Not dramatic. Not loud. But irreversible. His phone buzzed seconds later. Then again. Then again. He didn't check it at first. Like ignoring it might delay what was coming. It didn't. I stood up slowly, closing my laptop, placing it back into my bag like this was just another meeting ending. But it wasn't. Because this was the moment everything shifted. Not just for me. For him. For the deal. For everyone connected to it. He finally looked at his phone. And whatever he saw changed his face completely. Color drained. Control gone. Reality set in. I didn't ask what it said. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. The process had started. Investigations. Reviews. Internal pressure. The kind that doesn't stop until something breaks. And something always breaks. I turned to leave, but before I stepped away, he spoke. Not confident. Not controlled. Desperate. He said we could still fix this. That word again. Fix. I paused just long enough to look back. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. With clarity. Because there was nothing left to fix. I said something simple. This was never mine to fix. Then I walked out. No rush. No hesitation. Just forward. A month later, I heard what happened. Quietly. Through people who still worked there. The deal didn't go through. It collapsed. Too many questions. Too much risk. Too much exposure. He didn't just lose the project. He lost his position. And the same man who sat across from me with control in his hands was now trying to explain what he couldn't undo. He reached out once. One message. Short. Direct. Said he needed help. I didn't respond. Because some endings don't need words. He took my work. He took my pay. He thought that was the end of it. But in the end, he lost everything that mattered. And I didn't have to take it back. The truth did it for me. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting revenge stories. See you in the next one.